How's it going, everybody? This is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. In today's podcast, we welcome back David Knox, president of David Knox Productions. He is certainly no stranger to Fox and Roach. You can find his training videos on ACE. He has done many live events where he has spoken to our agents about improving their business. And in today's episode, we specifically want to talk about how to make the jump from $2 million to $5 million in production. And the reason why that topic is so important is that the vast majority of agents are usually somewhere between that $2 million to $5 million mark. And we want to get you over the hump. We want to get you to that next level. So David does a fantastic job of laying out a plan that you can follow in order to get your business to that level and beyond. So let's get right into the interview today with David Knox, and we'll pick it up on the other side. It is David Knox. He is no stranger to Fox and Roach. I feel like, David, I kind of have met you in the past, say, year and a half, but I feel like I've known you for about 15 years because of all your training videos and your live sessions with us. First of all, I want to welcome you back. But secondly, I'm excited to talk about our topic today because we are going to talk about something that I think is extremely relevant for the majority of agents out there. And that is how to make the leap or the jump from $2 million a year to $5 million a year in volume. And so, first thing I wanted to touch upon is just to give some context to that. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average real estate agent earns about $45,000 to $46,000 a year. Now you're incorporating some part-timers in there, but it's about $46,000 a year. 10% of those agents earn less than $23,000 a year, and 10% of the agents earn more than $110,000 a year. So the vast majority of agents are stuck somewhere in the middle of that pile right there. And so today I wanted to have you on to help our agents get to that next level, get to consistently be above that $110,000 or roundabouts $5 million. If you're doing $5 million, it kind of equates to around that number. So I thought that was a good segue into what we're going to talk about today. And of course, it's great to have you here and to help us out. So let's just start, right off the bat. Let's talk about just the nuts and bolts of getting from 2 to 5 and what maybe separates, to start off, those doing $2 million a year as opposed to those who are consistently doing $5 million a year.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
A long-winded introduction, by the way.
It's interesting. Bob Wolf, one of the people we feature in our training, who, by the way, here's the simple answer to going from 2 to 5 million is just watch all the videos by Bob Wolf and you're done. That's literally, I swear to you, if you
we can end the podcast right now.
End the podcast. Just listen to Bob Wolf, WOLFF. His gross commission income this year is going to be well into the 3, 4, 5 million. And he blew through the 5 million in sales billion years ago. But if you can do, and he made the comment, he says, McDonald's works on one corner, it'll work on 3 corners. If you can run 1 mile, you can run 3. And yes, there's an incremental growth. And then you can get into the quote, it's progress, not perfection. And you do it 100-yard dash at a time. You don't go from 1 to 50 miles, you go from 1 to 2 and a little bit more, and a little bit more. So, I wrote down some notes in preparation for this. And step number 1 for anybody listening to this podcast, and if you don't do this step number 1, just turn off the podcast. I mean, and I don't mean to be cynical and rude, but literally, if you don't do number 1, just turn off the podcast and just, do whatever you were doing before. And I guess I'm at a point in my career where I'm tired of just, dancing around the issue. Now, step number 1 is set the goal to go from 2 million to 5 million. Put it in writing now. In fact, right now, I'm going to take a little drink of water, and I want everybody listening to this podcast, take out a piece of paper, and I want them to write down, my annual sales are 5 million. So step number 1, we put that in writing. We put it in front. I'll show you how to write that a little bit better. But you write that number down and then put it everywhere. And all the things about bathroom mirrors, et cetera, it works. Keep it in front of you, out of sight, out of mind. So step number 1 is to set the goal to do 5 million, period. And if you do that, then what we're going to talk about later from now on will probably work. If you can't even make that first commitment, then what's the point? Turn off the podcast and move on. It's kind of like people who say they want to lose weight. They go over to a buffet line. There's a salad here, and then there's a real heavy meal here. The decision you make at the beginning of the buffet line, which food you eat, that decision that you make in that instantaneous moment determines the rest of your life. So that's the first step of going from 2 to 5, is taking those steps. Step number 2 is to convert that goal into an affirmation. It is the oldest technique in the world. It's probably thousands and thousands of years old. I first was approached by it in a company called Achieving Your Potential, Lou Tice, who taught me how to write affirmations. And in 1978, one of the very first affirmations I wrote was, I enjoy writing and reading my affirmations daily. And the second one was, and I still have the 3x5 card. I do like kind of an analog way of doing it. I have switched my affirmations now to a PowerPoint. But the next affirmation I wrote was, I am pleased to be a national public speaker. That was the day I set the goal to do what I'm doing today. And I have the card, I look at it, and I visualized it. And I remember at night I would read the affirmation. I'd visualize myself in front of audiences. I'd visualize myself shaking hands at the end of the event. And I had a lot of imagery from which to borrow. I'd been to a lot of NAR conventions, and I saw people speak and what it was like at the end. And I hung on to those images. And pretty soon I started getting opportunities to do it. It's kind of like when you buy a red car, all I can see for the rest of the day is red cars. Women have told me that when they're about to have a child, that they see pregnant women all over the place because that information comes to us. So the next thing that I would ask our listeners to write down, and maybe we'll just pause and let people do it, because I know if you don't do it now, it never happens. And that would be, here's an affirmation that I would have everybody write. I am consistently creating 500,000 in monthly production and have hit my $5 million goal. So I'll say it again. I'm consistently creating 500,000 in monthly production and have hit my $5 million goal.
And David, if I could just add to what you're saying, and I don't mean to interrupt, but that was going to be my very first question to you. If we were firing off a series of questions about how to get to 2 to 5, the number one thing, and I'm so glad that you started right there, was goal setting, because I can just tell the listeners out there, the thing that separated my business from early in my career until now is goal setting. Yes. And it was the one thing where every single year it became abundantly clear to me that if I did not set those goals, I was not going to be focused and do the things that would allow me to reach where I want to go. And now that I do those things, I'm a numbers freak. So I know my numbers inside and out. And I know I referenced earlier in the podcast that, 5 million is going to get you around that $100,000 mark, $100,000 mark, give or take. I know exactly where I need to be. I know where I need to be for awards levels. I know where I need to be in terms of income. I know where I need to be in terms of production and units and my average sale price. So I'm sure we're going to get into all that, but I just wanted to preference that. And the affirmations, that's a great thing, because what you focus on expands, right? We always say that. And it is so true that affirmations do carry a lot of weight, and I truly believe in them, and I do them myself. So I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Affirmations are powerful because they speak directly to your subconscious mind. They go past your conscious mind, because your conscious mind is like, how the heck am I ever going to do that? I'm only 2 million. How am I going to get 3? How am I going to get 4? That'll never work. We go through all this junk in our mind, the self-talk. But when you do an affirmation, you visualize doing $500,000 a month and see what that's like. Then you can see that, and your subconscious mind just takes it literally and moves it on. So the key to an affirmation is that it be first person, present tense statements of I am, not I will, but I am. And the best way I have taught people to write affirmations is to mentally go forward in time to the point where it is done and write a postcard to someone telling them what happened. So when all of our listeners, when you do hit your 5 million, you're going to hit it. And there'll be a time where you could write back, and maybe they write me and say, Dear David, I listened to your podcast. I am now consistently doing $5 million every year. So you write it as though it's already happened. And you could do that with weight loss and every other part of your life: physical, spiritual, psychological, intellectual, financial. And that's a whole nother seminar I could get into, but you can read how to do affirmations, and we've got some videos on values-based goal setting. So set the goal, write the affirmation. And the other thing you'll probably notice that I took the annual goal and I converted to monthly, because if you set a goal to do 5 million in production and you don't do 1/12 of it the first month, it's likely to go, well, I guess that didn't work, and we blow it off. But every month you get to start over. And you're not going to be at your 500,000 month the first month, maybe not even the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth, maybe not even who knows? And the point is, at some point you will be there. It's like being in traffic. As long as you're moving, you feel good about it. You see, I can see my destination up there. I'm not there yet, but I'm on my way. And the GPS says, here's how far I have to go. And that's how goal setting works. Step number 3 is, and I almost was going to make this step number 1, but it violates everything I teach about goal setting. Step number 3 is hire an assistant. Hire an assistant. Hire an assistant now, today. Get help now. I don't care, friend, relative, niece, nephew, husband, wife. Get somebody to help you do all the stupid stuff that sucks your will to live on any given day. Maybe you find somebody else and you share an assistant. I don't care how you do it. And I kind of stopped being so assertive about this because I thought, I'm asking somebody to commit to 20, 30, 40 grand a year, hiring somebody. And I don't know, is that right of me to do? And the answer is yes, it is. And I reaffirmed that. I was interviewing for our new videos that are coming out in October, an agent named Kelly Moy that I've known forever. She worked with Howard Brinton. And anybody listening, been in the business a while, knows my friend Howard Brinton, who sadly passed away a number of years ago. But he created the Star Power system. And he interviewed all the top agents in the world and released them on audio cassette. He had a Star Power seminar. He's a great, great guy. And he changed the lives of thousands of real estate agents. And I said, Kelly, if I remember right, the reason that I even know you is because you worked for Howard Brinton. She says, yeah, I worked for Howard Bay in the early days when I was 23 years old. And I said, what did you learn from Howard that you applied today? And she said, I sat through so many of his seminars because I sold the product in the back of the room. And the first thing Howard always would say is hire an assistant. So she said, when I got my license, I hired an assistant. I haven't even listed or sold anything yet. And I hired an assistant. And that's what got her off. And she's doing 40 million a year in sales. So she's not so out of the blue, 100, 200 million a year that people go, I could never do that. She's doing 40 a year and she's got some assistants. So step number 3 is hire an assistant. Step 4 is then, if you're really serious about this, you make a plan. If you're serious about weight loss, you decide what are my 3 meals going to be? When do I exercise? When do I work out? And you come up with a plan. And for everybody here, you do your $5 million business plan and then do your math. So you take 5 million, you divide it by 11 months, not 12. I don't want anybody on this podcast working 12 months. It's a waste of airtime. There's a great quote that says, we spend our youth creating wealth, then spend our wealth repurchasing our youth. So the time to enjoy your youth is while you're young. And decide that you're going to take 4 weeks a year off. More if you choose, but you ought to do 4. And maybe every quarter you take a vacation and you book it, you plan it, you book the tickets, you book the hotel room. And we all know, and for those of you who are new to the business, ask any successful agent anywhere, what happens before a vacation? I promise you 100% of them, not 99, 100% of them will say, my gosh, it's the best week ever. I'm so busy. Everybody wants to list. Everybody wants to sell. So do your math, divide it by 11. And that way you can do your 5 million in 11 months instead of 12. And then continue with the math. 5 million, you divide it by your average sale price, average commission, et cetera. You come up with how many transactions do you need in a month or in a year to hit your goal. And then you can go a little bit more granular and say, well, if I wanted to get 5 listings a month, how many listing presentations would I need to do? Maybe 7, maybe 8. So I net 5 and do the math. Next part of your plan, I'm doing a series of videos called Time Management Secrets of CEOs. I've recorded 4 of them so far. 1 is already up. I've invited Joan Doctor to be on one of them. I hope that she joins me for that. But so far, the first 4 CEOs have all mentioned one thing consistently, and that is time blocking. Comes up time and over and over and over again. They block their time. They decide, and some people do it in 90-minute segments. Some do it in 30, some 60, whatever. Dan Forsman with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Georgia Properties, follows the book Miracle Morning. And he described his whole plan, when he gets up, what he does next, all the way through, and how he blocks it out, and the discipline. And he said, if it's not on my appointment calendar, it's invisible. So take things off your to-do list and time block. So maybe Saturday, Sunday, door knocking, open house for sale by owners expired, some of those good old school ways of getting in front of people. And then Monday morning ought to be, or maybe Sunday night is phone calls to all your current listings to let them know what's going on. Monday morning is follow up from open houses. I mean, you make up your time blocking. And by the way, the first thing that should go in your time block would be date night, time with your kids, family, golf, whatever it is. For me, it's, I like, track days with my car. So pick it out. Before I get to number 5, I'm just going to stop and see how this sounds to you. Jason, anything else you think your listeners would have been asking right now?
Oh yeah, no, I think, David, every time that we speak, you touch upon, there's I feel like certain things that we constantly need to hear as agents as reaffirmations, right? Because if we're in this business long enough, we kind of, I think a lot of agents know what they need to do. It's just a matter of actually doing it and putting it into practice and making it a habit every day that you get up. And the things that you mention are just so universally true. I know for me, so I am at a point in my career, just speaking, where I've touched upon this before in the podcast, is that I have been a knucklehead for a number of years, and I didn't do the assistant for a long time. And I am at a point in my career where it's a breaking point, because there are only so many hours in a day, and I am doing a fair amount of business now, and I do have some help, but I am still on the hunt for, sometimes I let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Right. I'm looking for the perfect assistant and not necessarily just, someone that can help me get to that next level. And if I want to expand my business, like you had mentioned, I think it was Kelly you had mentioned her name was.
Yes.
If I want to expand my business to that 40 million, I know what I need to do. It's not a question of that. It's a question of me doing it. And so I think it's so true. You speak about the assistant, you speak about time blocking. And for me, if it isn't on my calendar, it's the same thing. If it's not on my calendar, then it doesn't exist. And for a long time as a newer agent, that was one of the problems that I had, was that I was trying to remember everything in my head, and I was not writing it down. I was not doing a day planner. I was not doing a weekly planner. And I noticed that had to change. And every day that I got up now, I focus on 3 critical items that need to be done before anything else. And so that kind of helps to guide me along each day, that I need to get 3 items absolutely without fail. I need to get these items done, and then I can get to other things. Yep. And so I wake up and try and do that every day. So anyway, just a couple side notes there. I will kick it back to you, and let's keep going. Let's keep doing it.
Well, you were talking about everybody knows what to do, but they don't have the motivation. Well, that's my point number 5 is, how do you motivate yourself? And I could probably save a lot of time by having everybody watch 2 of our videos, Knox First Tuesday number 07, KFT 07, and KFT 34, Knox First Tuesday number 34. And they get into values-based goal setting. But there are 3 elements of goal setting that I've been presenting for, 40 years: values, objectives, and goals. A goal answers the question, what? What do you want? It describes the end result. It's something you could take a picture of. You can't do a goal. A goal is a measurement of something that has been done. It answers the question, what is it you want to get? Income, wealth, health, all of those things. The next word is objectives. And to me, objectives describe the behavior. It is what you do. The goal is the arrival. The objectives are the journey. And the objectives answer the question, how are you going to get what it is you want? And that gets into all the didactic. If it's weight loss, it's working out, diet, exercise, et cetera. If it's income in real estate, it's listing, sales, negotiating, prospecting, all of those things. And the goals describe what you get. The objectives describe what you give. And you have no control over what you get out of this life, period. And you can't control other people. You literally cannot control anything else in your life. People who think they can are the ones that go neurotic. And you can't control your buyers or the sellers or the interest rates of your husbands or wives. All you can control is yourself. So, I've been involved in Al-Anon meetings. And the very first thing they say in Al-Anon is, you are not here for the alcoholic in your life, because you can't control the alcoholic. You can't cure them. You can't cause it. You are here for yourself. You are here for how you take care of yourself in relation to whatever the alcoholic. You can't change them. You can change yourself. And that is one of the more powerful personal growth things that any of us can have. Focus on you, because nothing else is in your control. And the belief that it is crazy. So in the objectives, you can focus what you give. If you want to get love, give love. If you want to get listings, give value. But the deeper issue, back to motivation, is values. And that asks the question, why? Why do you want to make 5 million? So I might go back to those listening to the podcast and maybe they wrote down the number. Hopefully they wrote down the number 5 million. My next question is, why do you want to do that? And if their answer is, well, I don't know, I'm listening to this podcast and you told us to write it down. Yeah, okay, good. But why would you want to do 5 million in sales a year? And if they come back with a strong why, well, because, I've never made that kind of money and I've got 2 kids and I want to take them to Disneyland and I want to plan for my retirement. I'd like to buy a new car for my wife and I want to do this and I want to do that. And it feels good. And they get into the feelings that they want to create. If you know the why, you can do any how to. And there's a woman we feature in our training named Venus Morris Griffin, who was making 20 grand a year, pocket money, part-time, discovered her husband had a double life. He was sent to prison for 45 years, leaving her with 6 kids to feed, 20 grand in income, 100 grand in debt, no place to live. Wow. And she now, this year, she'll do well over 2 million in gross commission income. So whatever, 100 times more. And I said, so what was, and I already knew the answer, but I asked the question. I said, so Venus, what was your motivation? She said, David, I'll tell you what, when I come home at night and I look at my 6 babies and I need to feed them, for sale by owners are just not that scary. So if you know the why, you can do the how to. If you don't have that why, it's very difficult to do it. Step 6, I talk about first steps. And Tony Robbins was really good about this very early on. What is the very first thing you need to do? If it's a weight loss, you pick salad next time you go through a buffet. You go for a walk, just as simple as wake up, have a glass of water, go for a walk. When I see somebody walk into our gym in my Westin hotel, I see people walk in, they get on the Stairmaster and they walk about 1 mile an hour for 15 minutes and leave. And the first part of me is like, dude, you're really not doing yourself any good. And I stop and say, you know what? They walked into a gym. They spent 15 minutes. They walked out. That's more than 95% of Americans. So God love them for coming in and doing that, because tomorrow maybe they do 16 minutes. It's that progressive. So the first steps, I have a video, Knox First Tuesday, number 27, 10 ways to be the one. And the first 4 are get up, dress up, show up, and shut up. And get up means get up. Get up early. Decide, everybody listening to this podcast, go to bed 15 minutes earlier tonight. And then maybe tomorrow you're up 15 minutes early. You do this until you get into, maybe you don't have to be up at 3:30 or 4 like some of these crazy people, unless you really like that. But, up at 6, and do your coffee and computer at 6 and work out at 7, whatever. Dress up. We've gone from casual Friday to a casual decade. And I just think if you really want to go to 2 to 5 million, outdress the people that are 2 million. Dress as a $5 million agent. Dress up. And then show up, which means take action, be face-to-face. I was talking, with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Zoom yesterday, and I opened with a comment. I said, every listing is preceded by a conversation. Not a text, not an email, not a social media. I mean, you could do all those things, but it's preceded by a conversation, preferably face-to-face. So show up means get face-to-face with people. And number 4 is shut up. I know that's a harsh way of saying it, but the kinder, gentler way is listen more than talk. When you're with a buyer or seller, just shut up and listen. Step 7 is to find a mentor. And this is kind of obvious, but I want to remind people, if you want to get to be a $5 million agent, go find all the other $5 million agents in your office. And if you want to get rid of the excuses, find somebody that is your age, your gender, your race, find them so they're like you. Because if you say, well, yeah, but she's only got 2 kids and I got 4, you'll find some excuse not to follow that person. But get together with other agents that are selling 5 million or more, set up a lunch and you buy lunch. Take them to a really nice place so it's expensive. Then listen to them when they give you advice. Then interview each one and ask them, how did you reach that level? What did you do? What did you do differently? And then if they will let you, and some agents will, not all will, but do an on-location shadowing of an agent in a presentation. Ask if you can go along, tell them you'll be really quiet, you'll dress up. And I say, so Jason, if you're going to be my mentor, I'll say, Jason, I'll come along and watch you. You can introduce me as your assistant. I'm okay with that. And I'm just going to take some notes. And then I'll listen in on prospecting calls, accompanied to appointments. So number 7, find a mentor. I hope this resonates, but it's one of the most powerful things that you can do. Number 8, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it other than to say, switch your focus to listings. When you have listings, you control the market, you control your time, you control your income. When you work with buyers, they control you and they will suck your will to live. So decide today to work with listings. Step number 9 would be train yourself on prospecting, lead generation, presentation, closing. We have action plans in the Fox Roach training, but Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Fox and Roach is providing you access to our online training. We've got I don't know, 580 videos in there. You can hear from Bob Wolf, Jack Cotton, top luxury guy, Venus Morris Griffin, Kelly Moy will be in there soon. And you get to hear, I think every agent that we have in our system is doing it at very least 5 million. I think all of them are. Number 10, practice. You cannot get good at a skill-based business without practicing. I might change this word. You know what? I'm going to change this word because people, I don't like to practice. So I'm going to change it to rehearse. That's the new word. In fact, in the middle of the night last night, I said, nobody likes role playing. Nobody likes to practice. I'm going, okay, let's call it. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to call it rehearse. How about that? Is rehearsal okay? Actors do it. Attorneys do it. So rehearse. So you got to role play to change behavior. You got to practice on somebody, and your only choice is on whom. If you want to practice on a seller, cost yourself a $10,000 commission, or you practice on somebody else, cost yourself a bit of embarrassment. Of course, there's a lot of agents that they'd rather lose the money. But I promise you, doing rehearsal is a great way to go. And I have a series of videos called iPractice, small I, capital P, play off the iPad. And I highly recommend that you do 5-minute role plays, no longer. Have somebody record you video with your device so you can delete it if you don't like it. And then watch yourself on video. I will make this guarantee to every listener. A 5-minute playback of a recorded role play will do more to change your behavior than 5 years of experience. Just like bingo. At the end of 5 minutes, you go, oh my gosh, I got to change this. Number 11, I kind of alluded to it, but I'll just say it again, and that is get physical. Get into some form of physical activity. And, when I take a look at when did I get into it, I used to be into it in college, then I got out of it. And honest answer, the reason I got back into it back in 2015 is I went through a painful divorce. And the end of the story is she and I are very, very good friends now. She's gotten remarried, and we have a great relationship now. We're very good friends, so I'm happy to report the other side of that. That didn't happen right away. But I got physical. I said, I got to do something. I got to get all this anxiety and stress and sadness out of my system. So I started working out. And then I got a trainer. I thought I was working out till NE, my trainer, started kicking my butt. And now I work out, at least I plan to work out 7 days a week, and then I pick 2 to slack off. So sometimes I wake up and go, this is my slack off day. I'm not going to go. Then I feel good, and I'm glad that I do it. And I did it today, even though I had some early meetings. So 11, decide to get physical. If nothing else, go for a walk. Have a glass of water, go for a walk. Dan Forsman, I don't know that he's going to be an Olympic athlete. That's not his goal. But he goes for a walk every morning. He takes 2 5-pound weights, and he kind of carries them as he walks around. And that's his exercise. He does something. And Dave Beeson, a good buddy of mine, when asked what prospecting sources to use, had a great line. He said, anything works and nothing doesn't. And I think that applies to life. Number 12, last one, is just a repeat to read your affirmations. Select the time to read them. I did mine this morning. Like I said, I put them on a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm trying to find something that's going to be on my iPhone and my Mac, so I can, if I come up with an idea for a new affirmation, if I change it on one device, it changes on the other, but it's got to be something I can flip through. And I just open up the affirmation, read it, close my eyes, I visualize the end result. I try to get in touch with the feelings that it brings me and visualize that for a while. Then I open my eyes, look at the next one. Bob Wolf does this every day. He's just vicious about doing it every single day. He reads them. He's got them in his shower. He does them all the time. And in terms of when to read them, I don't know. Everybody's got a different time. Some like to start in the morning. Some like to do it before they go to bed. So it kind of sits in your subconscious at night. So pretty much whatever you want to do. So those are 12 things that came to mind on how to go from 2 to 5 million. And you'll notice that I didn't have a lot of technique on how to do a listing or a sale or prospecting or dialogue or things like that, because that can be learned, and nobody's going to learn it, and nobody's going to practice, and nobody's going to do it if you haven't done all these other things. If you don't want to do 5 million in sales, why in the world would I ever want to teach a technique on a listing presentation? So the training will focus you through that. So those are my 12 initial thoughts.
Well, I'll tell you what, you covered a whole lot. I mean, you could just tell, David, that you've been doing this for years and years and years, because you got through that in no time flat. And I'll tell you what, such great advice coming from you. And, you've seen it all in your career. I mean, you've traveled the world, you've taught seminars, everywhere, seemingly. And you've seen and basically had conversations with some of the biggest producers throughout the country, throughout the world. You know what works, you know what doesn't. And I feel like, again, if we're going back to, I just wanted to touch upon a couple things that you had said, following up the last segment of what you just spoke about, is that, surround yourself with people that do the business, right? That have been there, have done that. They say we are who we surround ourselves with, right? So I'm always wary about who my friends are. I'm like, what am I doing with this person? I mean, no offense to some of the friends that I've had growing up, but we have to think about who we surround ourselves with and try and get to that next level, that mindset of being successful and getting to that next level. Right. I think for me, also you say dress for success, right? And I think immediately of, I had a meeting with someone recently and she showed up dressed to the nines and we were just getting coffee. I would just wanted to pick her brain about something. And she showed up dressed to the nines. And I said to her, I said, why are you dressed the way that you're dressed right now? You didn't have to come all dressed up. And she said, well, I've always known you to be in a suit. I've never seen you not be in a suit. And I said, that's so interesting. And then I felt guilty because I showed up in a t-shirt and jeans. So it made me think I needed to put the suit back on, but yes, that is so true. And then also, you had mentioned not only dressing for success, but also just having a conversation and talking to people. There is nothing that drives me up a wall further that when you are working with a co-op or just having a conversation with another agent about something, maybe they're picking your brain about something and they want to send you a text that is 5 miles long. Just pick up a phone and call somebody and have a conversation, because 9 times out of 10, you can work it out over the phone, right? Yep. Or in person, and having that face-to-face conversation. I think that just carries so much weight to it. I know that's an aside to what we're talking about today, but I do feel like that's vitally important. So everything that you touch upon there is just critical to your business. And like you said, that's kind of the macro of how to get the 2 to 5 million. And if you're not focused on the macro, then you're not going to focus on the micro.
Right, right, exactly.
And the last thing that I would say to add to what you said is just, you say without saying it, but really it just comes down to, what are your habits every day? And what are you getting into in terms of being successful, not only as an agent, but in life? It involves, I'm a big believer in habit stacking. You are your habits, right? What are you doing every day that is going to put you in a position to succeed tomorrow? And so much of our business is, what are you doing today for your pipeline tomorrow, right? And so you always have to be mindful about what you're doing now is going to set up your future for success. And so, right now we're getting into that last quarter of the year. And what are you doing today that is going to help you finish strong for the rest of the year? So, as always, David, I'll end it there. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us again. It's always fantastic listening to you, just from somebody who does a podcast and does a lot of speaking. Hearing you speak is just always a true pleasure to listen to an absolute pro. So,
well, thank you very much. Thanks, Jason. It's been a pleasure to be on your show. I wish you the best. And if I can be of any help to your listeners, I'm always happy to do it. So thank you.
And the last thing I'll say is check out David's videos. You have access to a number of David's videos through Fox and Roach. Always great advice, always educational. And David, if they want to just, check out your website, can you just touch upon, what's the best place to see you online?
There's 2 ways. One, if you go to davidknox.com, which is the easiest, and you'll see a member login, one for consumer videos and one for real estate training. And you can click on the real estate training, enter your email, and then whatever password Fox and Roach has given you. You could go directly to real estate training by davidknox.com and enter username and password. If you forgot your password, click forgot password. And I don't know, but somebody on yesterday's Zoom said that your intranet has some kind of button, maybe with my name or photo on it, that you click and it logs you in. So those are some ways to do it. And you can also download the app, Knox Training, but still you have to have your username, email, and your password.
All right. Excellent. Thanks a lot, David.
Well, thanks very much, Jason.
That was my conversation with David Knox, and a couple takeaways that I have. That interview was great because it focused on, number one, the macro, right? we talk about all the intricate things that we can do and all these details to our business. But number one, if you're not focused on the macro and the big picture and the things that you consistently need to do every day, then the micro has no meaning, right? So that's why we focused on the big picture today, and then we can focus on the smaller details as we go along. Number two, if you are not goal setting, if you do not have a business plan, you don't believe in affirmations, you don't write anything down, you don't time block, then you are not going to be effective in your business. It is almost impossible to remember every date that you have in your head. If you don't know your numbers, you are just going to drift. So I suggest today, if you are not doing any of those things, believe that they work, because they do. I know in my business, when I started off, I was not writing anything down. I was like, I don't need a business plan. I remember this date in my head. I have an inspection on Tuesday, or, I have a commitment date that's due on the 15th. Write everything down. It is so critically important, and it is the number one reason why my business has expanded. And the third takeaway, and for me, probably the most important thing that David touches upon in that podcast, is your why. And I know that the vast majority of you listening have heard this before, finding your why. What is your why? But it is so important, because it is not always about doing the most business that you could possibly do. You do enough business that suits you and what you want out of the business. So my question is, why do you want to do the business that you're doing? What is the reason behind it? Because that is the fuel every day. Because our business is a marathon every year, and we take it in usually yearly chunks of how much we want to do during that year. Well, to get to that goal, you have to have fuel, right? It's just like running a race, running a marathon. You have to have the proper fuel to be able to make it through that race. So what is your why? What is that fuel that propels you forward when times are tough? It's miserable outside, or you're having a rough day. Maybe the family is bugging you. You're taking a lot on. You have to have that motivation to get you through that day and get you to your ultimate goal, which is your number that you set out to hit at the beginning of the year. So what is your why would be my last takeaway. Thanks for joining us. That is our podcast this week. We'll be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest, and of course, you can always reach out to me at jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. If you have any suggestions, want to provide any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't subscribed or left a review for the podcast yet, please do so. We always appreciate your support. And as always, stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you next time on the Everything Real Estate Podcast.